Well, happy day after Christmas or happy Boxing Day to all of you, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea. Got my Gemini cup. Sit back and relax, and let's chat about what is happening in the universe around us today. And today is a big day. So, of course, I sat down this morning and I was toggling between, do I come on air? Do I stay in bed? Do I come on air? Do I stay in bed? I finally decided to come on air because my husband had to get up anyway. So if he had to get up and go to work, then I had to as well, even though mine isn't so much work as fun. But it was interesting because I had this thought this morning about what I would come on and talk about. And then I got ready and it changed. So I found myself in the middle of a story that I need to relate to all of you that is probably going to have to come in parts because there's so much to it, as well as the things that are going on any given day. So the story is one of cosmic alignment. And what are we willing to do? What are we ready to do to go to that new place, right? To create that evolution that we've been waiting for. Now, of course, last night, my time, early this morning, for a lot of you who also listen from Europe or the East Coast, you experienced the new moon solar eclipse. So how perfect is this? We have a jacked up new moon allowing us to begin something new, and it's followed energetically from a completely different system to a new cosmic alignment. You gotta love it, right? I just love the coherence of things that happen here when we're really paying attention to the stars above us. Even though this really isn't about the stars, this is about bigger cycles of time and how these cycles of time and each one of us fall into and are affected by what is happening in the bigger picture. The beauty of this all, the beauty that we've learned since 2012 or 2011, if you subscribe to that date, end of the Mayan calendar, is that we are now fully in the co-creator seat. And that means that we are able to and are aware of the way that we impact everybody when we are creating our lives, how we collectively are creating a reality. Although I would say, just like, when we're maturing, we all mature at different rates, that there are a lot of people out there that are still in the infancy of this. In fact, maybe we could look at it, we're all sort of toddlers in this whole idea of co-creating our reality. And there's the spectrum of people that are a little ahead of the curve, and we're already talking about how to do this and what we can do, the power that we have to control our destinies. And then there's the other spectrum of people that we see that are in resistance to that kind of evolutionary impulse in creating a different world. So we're going to talk more about that today in the view of the Pleiadian-Earth calendar, because today begins the collective shadow period that I was talking about. I think I began talking about it in November, and it starts today and takes us all the way into January 10th, I believe it was. So we have a lot to get to in that story. So today we're going to get to the beginnings of that part of the story and what does it mean, and then we'll move through it in subsequent days. It's not like we have to be in a hurry. It's evolution after all. It takes a time and effort. Let's see. Good morning to Elisa and Mimi and Asa. Great to see you. I hope everybody had a great Christmas. Namaste, lovely souls from Asa. Allison, good morning to you. And I hope whoever else is out there listening to us, that you all had a wonderful Christmas day. I spent the Christmas Eve. My timing is so off because typically we hold our family doings on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And this year, of course, that got a kink thrown in it when my daughter's surgery had to be scheduled in order to get it into 2019. So she didn't have to pay a whole nother deductible for 2020. The only day they had available to do this was on Christmas Eve. So I was in Seattle most of Christmas Eve day and into the evening. And then Christmas Day yesterday, I spent with two of my grandkids who were, their mom and dad still in the hospital while my daughter was recovering. She is home now and doing great. And we are not even having celebrated yet. It didn't even occur to me, oh my God, that most of the world is celebrating Christmas right here in this moment. And it was just surreal. And it made me really see the artifice in all of this. Not that it isn't okay for us to come together and have a great time and share food and fun and presents. That's not my point. It was that we have this artificial timing going on. And I kept thinking about the word Christmas and how maybe it should be Christ-like or Christ-light instead of Christmas, because that's such an old term, and it prescribes us in, or subscribes us, if you will, into a view of religion as opposed to a celebration in the bigger, wider view of what's happening. And first of all, we have the very mechanical return of the light if you're up here in the northern hemisphere. And the dulling of the light, if you will, if you're in the southern hemisphere, as what really happens at the solstice time is the light is gaining if you are in the northern hemisphere, and the light is waning if you're in the southern hemisphere. So it's an interesting time, and in olden days, it was celebrated much differently than what Christianity imprinted over the top of the old pagan religions or the old knowledge that we had of what happens in the season. So we have this energy toward enlightening. You could say the southern hemisphere, you've reached enlightenment for this year, and now you're going back into the cave to learn more. And for those of us in the northern hemisphere, our enlightenment is full swing in happening for us as we move on. So there are so many things that go through your mind when you're not celebrating something the same way that everybody else does. And then it also made me think of all the ways that other people celebrate. There's Kwanzaa, there's Hanukkah, there's I'm sure there's other systems out there that celebrate Christmas in different ways than we do here in the USA, and different reasons for the season as you talk to different people in different cultures. So, I mean, I felt sort of set apart from everybody because of what I was doing that day, but also that how all of the world in coming together for a purpose of celebrating something like peace, goodwill, prosperity, that type of thing, coming together like that, united us. So anyway, just interesting things that can go through your mind when you're not worried about putting dinner on the table at a specific time and getting everybody's presents picked up. Or wrapped up and put out, and yeah, so just kind of funny. Anyway, though, however you spent your day yesterday, I hope it was pleasant and that you had a great time. Astrologically, we start the week it's not even the start to the week. We are midweek. We are in the moon in the sign of Capricorn, joining its energy to that already formidable collection of planets that are sitting there already. And we add another one tomorrow when Mercury moves into Capricorn tomorrow evening. So it'll bridge evening for all of our time zones here in the United States. But if you're in Europe or further east, it will be into Saturday morning when you all experience Mercury's shift into Capricorn. So that will bring well, let me show you the chart. I can show you the chart probably in a way that expresses this. Here is Capricorn. And if you look at that, look at all those planets. Now today, of course, it includes the moon, but does not include Mercury. Mercury's just right here on the edge, on the verge. And of course, I'm wobbling, so I'm making this blurry. But there's quite a number of planets there. We've talked about this a lot. So this is not something new. It's just one more piece on the chessboard moving in and through the sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn was about so many different things that are related to our getting more conservative, to seeing things in a different way, to being more methodical in how we roll out what we do in the world, to being more clear about what is our authority and staking the claim on your personal authority, and then being mindful of what it is that you are doing with your emotional energy. Maybe that's one component we do talk about the emotional energy a bit, but that axis of Cancer and Capricorn has a lot to do with the moon, its emotional energy, and how that is affected by the planet Saturn and Capricorn, in that it brings us sort of that feeling of the down wave of the emotional wave, where it's more melancholic, it's more introverted, it's more introspective, and it is a more taking us inward to see where it is that we might be out of alignment inside in order to reflect outside the changes that we want to see. And so we have a really huge period of time where we're sort of incubating new ideas, new feelings, new ways of expressing ourselves, and new ways of going about getting done the business of our lives. And yet, what we see in terms of the bigger issues in the world is that Capricorn rules government. It rules big systems, so the military, your health and your health system, your education system, religions, and we see this sort of pulse pushing us more toward that conservative, let me take your rights away, even though I want to label it liberation and freedom. And that, to me, is crazy, right? So there's some crazy making things out there on the Capricorn end. But on the other end, for us as the individual, it's incumbent upon you to really design your life around what it is that you want to do. What do you want to contribute to the planet? And today, the only aspect that the moon was making anything new anyway, after the major new moon, right? That's a big aspect, conjunct the sun, conjunct Jupiter, basically on that same day, in the gate of joy, which means that we are really referring ourselves back to what brought us here to this planet. What was the impulse? You know, joy had to be involved somewhere, because it can't be that we chose as souls to embody here on this planet because we would experience problems or chaos or ugliness. That can't be the joy that we expressed when we were coming here. I have a feeling that the joy that in coming to this planet was the juiciness of all of those experiences, whether it was going to be joy and laughter and love, or was it going to be anger and upset, or, seeing unfairness or injustice. I know that from a soul level that I'm sure we wanted to experience it all. That joy was in the being here, beingness, and not in the different moods or things that might happen while we're here. The joy would be in how it was that we approached those challenges in our lives, and how we as individuals could affect the field of evolution on the planet. So when we look at things that way, then our minor little disturbances that we have in our lives really have more significance than we thought on a collective level, because we're adding to the collective. And I also think that sometimes we might be taking away from the collective. So we get an opportunity to reevaluate during this time of heavy Capricorn energy, our impact, what it is that we want to do. Are we really living in our authority, or are we giving it away? Are we giving it away to the government? Are we giving it away to the outer world that we see that's chaotic? Are we giving it away to other people's belief systems? Are we giving it away to hierarchy? Are we giving it away? Period. And if we're giving it away, why are we doing that? And how then do we call it back? Now, enter in the shadow period of time that we're in, the collective shadow period of time. So let me set the scene here. For 3 days ago, when we were on, when I was on the air, it was Monday actually, we entered into one self-regulating. And whenever we enter into one self-regulating, which can only happen once every, certain number of days, as the calendar goes through the round, 260 days basically. That combination can only come together. So you have 13 signs, or 13 universal energies, and you have 20 signs or day energies, earth energies. If you multiply 13 by 20, you have 260 combinations of the universal energy of the day and the earth energy of the day. So when we get to the collective shadow period, it is 260 days since we were last in this powerful of a collective shadow period. And it can break into 4 sections. And each of those 4 sections has sort of an impulse that runs through it. And when I was thinking about that, I thought of it like human design, where human design starts the year at the middle to end of, like, the 23rd, I think it is this year, of January. The first quarter of the year is about the seed and the planting. And so if we use the plant and we go from seed to germination to growth to harvest, that's kind of these energies that we go through, these impulses in terms of the shadow period. So when we get to 1 self-regulating, we know we're about ready to enter the shadow period. And then it ends on the day that we get to 10 enlightening. And the evolutionary guidance of that week is 1 illuminating. So it makes sense. Self-regulating energy. Let me clarify one thing. The 1 days of the week come every 13 days, right? 1 through 13. 13 is ascension or completion, and then we start anew. And each one of those 1 days is a new evolutionary guidance or a new evolutionary impulse that carries us through the next 13 days, right? So the evolutionary impulse that began on 1 self-regulating was us taking a look inward and deciding what it is that we have to shift on our own, right? So self-regulating is where we begin this powerful thought about the collective shadow and what our part is in it and how we are going to shape it or be shaped by it. And then it ends when we get to 10 enlightening, or the guidance of that week, which would be 1 illuminating. So we start with sort of the more introspective and inward facing, looking at our own selves in the basis of the collective. And then it ends with the light being turned on. It's really beautifully poetic if you think about how in an evolutionary way, this gives us an entry point, and then it takes us through a cycle, or a spiral, and then exits us in the light to begin the next level. So it's really very beautiful. At least I found it sort of poetic as I was thinking about that this morning. So the collective shadow period then begins today, and it is where we are now. A demand is being placed upon us, I would say, a demand of our shifting perspectives and beliefs in order to evolve. So we can't continue believing the same things that we keep believing. We can't continue the same patterns, because to do so is psychosis. How appropriate is that, right? Our gene key 61, where Saturn and Pluto and Mercury will conjunct on January 12th, is in the gate of psychosis, the shadow of psychosis. And the upward movement through that cycle takes us into magic. So we can move out of the old patterns that have held us bound to old religious beliefs, old patterns of division, survival energies, and we can move out of that. And we can move up into new patterns and new evolved ways of being. Now, this is the shadow period of time that we're in gives us the opportunity for a cosmic alignment. Now, you got to think about this as well. On the winter solstice, which was just less than a week ago, the sun also aligned itself with the galactic center. So we've had the sun aligned at the galactic center. Just before that, we had Jupiter and Ceres aligned and Venus aligned at the galactic center. That showered us with a whole bunch of new potential cosmic energies. Then we even hear from the scientific community within the intervening week that the sun had gone indescribably quiet, which allows way more of those cosmic energies to bathe the planet and create mutation within our cells and our DNA. And then we go into a full moon a new moon solar eclipse that presents us with the opportunity for something new, to begin something new. And it's put itself in a sign, Capricorn, where there's a whole lot of focus on our taking a look at the structures and the forms that we've created and whether or not they're sustainable and whether or not that we can continue in this way, preying on the weak and empowering the strong. Is it sustainable to do that? So what we have then is a cosmic realignment time. This time that we're in from today all the way through January 10th gives us this opportunity to realign with the cosmos, because the cosmos is the defining, the organizing principle. And you could call cosmos God, you could call it source, you could call it goddess, you could call it whatever you want, because that doesn't matter. Religions and those kinds of thought processes are man-made, people-made. And we can change them. We can change our interaction with those things, those sacred things, those things that we hold sacred. Because maybe we're attached to sacred cows and not sacred eagles, right? So thinking, not that there's anything wrong with cows, by the way. They're really lovely. But what have you hitched your wagon to, I guess, becomes the question. What have you hitched your collective and your individual wagon to? What patterns no longer serve us collectively or individually, right? If it's not serving you individually, likely it isn't serving cosmically or collectively either. And then we get to choose more conscious action, or we'll feel out of control during this period of time when we're resisting the evolutionary impulse. The world already looks crazy. The world already feels out of control. Why? Because there's this resistance in the field to evolving, to moving beyond those things that separate us, to moving into a new relationship with the earth, a new relationship with one another, a new relationship with those things that we think we need, institutions, etc. Now, what we find here is as we go inward during this period of time, we might find that we have made choices both collectively and individually on artificial financial values, i.e. a hierarchical, can I get this to you? A hierarchical system of charging money where it plays on our idea that we have to earn money by sharing our gifts and talents, or that we must exchange our gifts and talents for a reward like food or shelter. Only humans have this notion of you have to work in order to be fed or housed. Only humans, right? The animal world doesn't have such an idea. Only human beings see the need to prey on one another through financial means, through a hierarchical financial system that makes it so that people who don't have the ability or, are not interested in being doctors, lawyers, or pro football players and earn millions, don't get to participate in the economy in the same way. So our value systems are skewed, are screwed, right? We have totally created this monstrosity that holds people down. At the same time, we're saying we're ready to raise you up. It's a false narrative, right? There's a false narrative going on. So we have to be prepared and ready to abandon our old ways of thinking. Right? We have to be ready to let this go. And it has to begin with you as an individual, because I cannot change the government. I cannot change people outside of me, but I can change me. So here's our opportunity to abandon those old ways of thinking, to respond to life by opening up your heart, your soul, your mind to the new, right? To what more is possible. What do I love and what do I want to share? Excuse me, I'm going to choke. What do I want to share? So here's our collective shadow time to stop, right? Come to a standstill. In human design, this is eloquent as well, as our sun is moved into the gate 58 and the earth into the gate 52. The gate 52 is the gate of stillness. And the gate 58 is the gate of bliss. So we have bliss and stillness that is born out of the shadow energies, which are stress and dissatisfaction. So those are our shadows. If we stop in this moment, we can re-examine where we are. Where are you as an individual? Where are you as part of a tribe or a community or a family? Where are you as part of the bigger collective? And then we get to reset. This is our reset time. As we move through the shadow and we consider all these things and all these patterns, and I really, ask that you take the time to go through this process, go into that shadow, dare to ask why you believe what you believe. Who taught you that? Does it really resonate within you? When you look deep within, do all of those old beliefs really resonate? Do your old patterns serve you or not? Because if they don't, this is your time. This is your reset, right? This is where you get to press the reset button. Like when your electronics mess up and you can't, restarting your computer is the only option and it resets everything. Same thing, like if you're, I have like my, whatever you call that thing, the internet modem, that it's reset sometimes, because in resetting it, it starts over, right? It fixes, it goes through the transcription of all of the errors and it fixes things. So we are in a cosmic alignment, or we have the opportunity to reset our cosmic alignment. Huge, huge, huge. So that's as far as I want to go with that today. Later, I want to get into how this also plays out for you as an individual. There are phases that we go through during this alignment. And the first phase, of course, is you got to figure out where you are. You got to go within and see what patterns you've adopted that were not true for you. And we've all done it, every one of us, right? We've all done this. We've made choices on these artificial values and never asking the question, why? Or is this true? Or, why am I playing into this? Why am I playing this game? It isn't my game. So there we go. Let's see who else has joined us in the meantime. We have Kathy Miller. Good morning. Marissa says, good morning. Having some serious technical difficulties on my end. Frustrated. Going to have to listen to the recording. Good morning, Michelle Siaka. Good morning, Susan Bronlin. Good morning, Mimi. Indeed, feeling the reset time, quiet, introspective, and contemplating goals for 2020. Indeed. And Heather Scott, good morning to you as well. So I think there's one advantage I feel like I might have during this time is that I've also been going through a very deep, dark personal time of reevaluation, as I've been in a Saturn return, my second Saturn return, which is the Saturn returns are the time in your life. You have one at about age 28 to 30, another one between 58 and 60, and then a third one, 30 years hence, so somewhere 78 to 80. And those times are reset times anyway, right? They're when the first one hits, you're resetting out of your youth and into adulthood, full adulthood. And then when you reach the second one, now you're seeing there are those fewer days ahead, perhaps those fewer productive days, and you're resetting that. You're letting go of whatever it is that no longer serves you as you go forward. It's sort of like taking off layers. And I found myself for the last several months, and maybe even since the beginning of the year even, removing these layers. And trust me when I say that removing layers, as easy as it sounds, it's not easy, because there are, and that's what this, conversation is about, that if we want to move ahead consciously into this, with this cosmic alignment, removing this layer of beliefs and patterns isn't easy. It shakes you to your core, as it should. Right? Because not only are you the repository of everything that's happened to you in this lifetime, there are also the pulses of energy through your ancestral line, through your other lifetimes, or lifetimes that maybe you're even living concurrently in other realities. And, science is coming closer and closer to showing us that indeed is true, that we're sort of in different timelines. And if that's the case, then the only one that you're focused in is this one, right? Your focus is in this lifetime. So what do you want to make the most of with the time you have left? And that's the question, right? How do we want to say that we lived our lives? Do we want to say that we lived it only marginally? Or do we want to say that we lived it holistically, that we went all in, right? That we went inward and we did what we needed to clean up our insides, and that reflected us outward to the outer world, and we begin to see the outer world change in response to the inner cleaning that we've done. So the only reason I think that I've had that advantage is because I've already been doing this all along. Some of you may not have been, and now is the time, right? This is our time. Let's do it. Let's get this change going. Let's release ourselves from that old stuff, the old voices in our head, the old patterns. So we get to do that. That's our choice, by the way. This is a choice. You can choose not to. You can choose to stay where you are, to hold on to your old beliefs, like, you see the patriarchy doing out there. You see the old guard out there holding on with teeth and nail and refusing to change and yield, refusing to move forward. And that resistance is needed in order to allow evolution to happen. But we only need about 10% out there holding on. That 10% creates enough juice for the rest of us to choose evolution and to move forward. And we do this all the time, right? These are pulses that come through humankind, that not just humankind. We're sort of, focused on humankind, but this is all of life. Right? This is all of life that is moving through these cosmic shifts and these cosmic realignment times. So join the club, right? You're a part of it. Let me just give you a quick look at the human design chart for the day. And here's today. It's a reflector kind of day. And I circled down there at the bottom where the sun and Jupiter are sitting at the gate 58. That is the gate, the impulse of joy and vitality. It's a very foundational energy from which we began life here. It's impulse energy because it's on the root center. And the root center is about impulse, moving us outward, right? So we come in, we've descended into the body. Our body is interfaced with the earth, the planet, and the root center is that interface. It's the impulse energy that takes us out. It moves us outward toward surviving, which is over here in the spleen center. And it moves us upward to action and deciding how we're going to serve and how we're going to share. And then it moves us over here to how are we going to love? How are we going to love and how are we going to feel? So and then of course, those centers take that energy and move it further up. So the impulse energy of the root is what the earth, or what the sun and Jupiter are focused on, while the earth is also focused on the root center. Let me circle that one. Maybe I'll highlight that one. The earth is focused over here on a different impulse energy. It's the impulse of stillness. I think that's kind of an oxymoron, right? The impulse of stillness, because the gate 52 is where it is a very still energy. Its lowest energy, its shadow energy is stress. The stress we feel from moving out of beingness into doingness. And whether that stress leads us to go in 50 directions all at one time, or whether we allow it to if we can restrain our energy and wait for things to happen that show us the direction that we're meant to move, that then leads us to the highest energy, which is stillness, that at times it's just about the stillness. And I always find it interesting that this whole week, so from the 26th today through the 31st, the last day of the year, we are in the gate of joy on one side with the sun and Jupiter, and the gate of stillness on the other side with the earth. And what does that mean for all of us, right? What does that mean for you personally? It may be a time for you to look at what stressors you have in your life. What is it that creates the most stress for you? Because likely there's a pattern attached to that stress. And what might that pattern be? Maybe it's a pattern of worry. Maybe it's a pattern of fear when certain things trigger. Maybe it is an old tape that's playing in your head where the past is repeating itself daily in your head. which prevents you from moving forward. So a lot of those energies from the root head off to the spleen, and the spleen is that center that is, losing its strength in us as a human template. As time moves on, we are less and less, even though it feels sometimes like we're more engaged in survival energy, but it's less and less a part of our human template, and more the emotional center, where we are taking action from what feels good, what feels joyful to us. And if you ask yourself that question every day, what would make me happy today? Does this thought of doing this thing make me happy? And if it doesn't, why would you still do it? That would be an old conditioning. That would be an old belief, right? That would be something that says, well, I have to get up in the morning and I have to go and I have to do and I have to do. Why do I have to do that? Because it shuts off the mind. And it doesn't necessarily shut off the mind, but it keeps, if we're busy doing and doing, we don't have to stop to consider the inner spiritual self. It reminds me of the time where in the Bible, Jesus, I think it was 40 days and 40 nights where he wandered the desert, where he got away from it all. I don't think he was actually wandering the desert, because other sacred texts tell of a time when he left the area and went to study with the yogis and gurus in India. And somehow that didn't get translated properly, likely because likely anyway, many different reasons. But the thing is that sometimes you have to withdraw and strengthen within. This is that time. And then a new you can emerge out into the world. So the shadow period that we're in lasts for an amount of time, a significant amount of time, actually. The shadow cycle, I'm just checking the dates because I want to make sure that I did this the right way. January 14th is the day when the cycle ends, not the 10th. Yeah. So December 26th to January 14th, you have this divine opportunity to go within, to shift with the cosmic template, to shift evolutionarily, to question everything, to re-examine and redirect yourself and your energies. So, all right. So what's everybody thinking out there? Heather agrees. Londa, good morning. Heather says, I keep grounding and committing to trusting myself. Some days are easier than others. Gotcha there, girl. Michelle, good morning. And Bob Eden says, good day, folks. Being requires neither any thinking or doing. That's true. So, all right. If you have any questions about what we've been talking about, or maybe even, be willing to share how that's shifting and moving within you. Because I can't imagine that there's any of you out there, even in the hustle and bustle of the holidays, that hasn't been feeling called to do something or shift something within you. What might that be? Right? What might that be? It could be any number of things, right? It could be relationships. It could be your health. It could be money. It could be your work. It could be how you do what you do in the world, and how do you want to show up? What do you love to do? If we woke up every day, and it's not to say, by the way, that there aren't days where we have to do things that we don't necessarily delight in doing, like going to the doctor or going to the dentist or something like that. But it's a different way of looking at even what it is that you have to do. So if you have to go to the grocery store to refill the refrigerator, and that's not something that you really like to do, you can choose to find the joy in doing that. Maybe you just put out to the world, well, this isn't my favorite thing to do, but I'm going to find the joy in doing that somehow today. Maybe it's an experience. Maybe it's a person I'm going to meet. Maybe, who knows, just be open to finding the joy in every moment. And that's a practice that I don't think we have adopted enough in our lives. Londa, re-examining, that's a big word. Re-examining, realigning, the great cosmic realignment. I mean, that's what we are in right now. And by the way, I can give you even the dates of the next one. So if you guys have gotten this book, the Pleiadian-Earth Energy Astrology, all of that's in here, right? All of that information is in here. She has these very wonderful tables neatly laid out and that tell you about the shadow cycles. So once we leave this shadow cycle, January 14th, we don't have another one until September 11th of 2020. So we have these periods. So it seems like, this is sort of rhythmic, don't you think? This is like a rhythm that we go through. And I want to talk about something else interesting that we don't do here in our modern life that other societies have done. And the Maya and even the Pleiadian Earth energy, it has this built in too, where there are these things called burner days. They were called burner days anyway for the Maya, where collectively the people would come together and they would literally burn off steam. And it would usually be like a collective party or a collective celebration of coming together, releasing all of the negative pent-up frustration, anger, upset, and releasing that, and then being able to start anew. And they did this literally and on a rhythmic basis every 65 days. So if you count 65 times 4, that's also our 260 day of the evolutionary cycle of the calendar, of the Mayan calendar included. And it's also the human gestation period, 9 months basically. And if you break that 260 days up into quarters every 65 days, we have a burner day, or we have a release day, a release point. At this point, we're releasing ourselves into re-examining what it is that we want to open up to. And then 65 days hence, we will have another sort of redirect energy. The problem is we don't have in our society right now, in our modern world, any celebration that comes that rhythmically, right? Because then we'd have to believe in something more than science or our religions, right? So every 65 days, what is it that we could do? Well, we could come together, we could blow off steam, we could offer up our old thoughts, our old patterns, we could just open our hearts that much further and see how that would make a difference in the world, right? How could we come together more and more? Collectively as people? How could we support one another? How could we, create from what's going on within us the changes that we want to see in the outer world? So, there's a lot of untapped potential there to do something like that. If some of you are more inclined to ritual and celebrations, you might do this privately. I think, when you go back even to, I wish our Suzanne Fulmer was out there. She could probably tell me more about how in the pagan times we have the cross-quarter days, right? Where there's Samhain that we went through, then there's the solstice, and then sometime in February there's another one, and I cannot remember the name of that one. I always forget that one. Imbolc, I think. And then we have the equinox, and then there's Beltane, and then there's the summer solstice, and then there's the one that comes in August. So we have, in our older days, in our more ancient roots, we have the same sort of thing. We're 65 days and there's a celebration, a release of something, an offering made to each other or to the gods or to just to the earth or whatever, right? And we've gotten away from that in our modern times. Bob says, I got a message from my mom in spirit telling me to get moving. Spot on, for I am feeling stuck at the moment. Londa says, I bought the book. I guess I need to read it. Londa, you and I are so too much alike. We are just too much alike because I get all these books and I intend that I'm going to read them. And most of them I do, but I do this like hopscotch thing through books. And, like the other day, the oneness book that just seemed to call me, and I got what I needed out of that book for that moment. And then likely I'll shift to another book, and I just hopscotch my way through books. That's it's how I learn, right? It's how I learn. I pull threads and I go from one thing to another and then bring it to you all just to tell you what I've learned, to share all of that information. All right. So tomorrow, Friday, we have Mercury moving into Capricorn. We might talk a little more about that tomorrow. We have, being Friday, the weekend to talk about, and the energies that'll be coming up for the weekend. And maybe we'll look a little bit more at I'm not sure if we've gone through the wisdom phases with gate 58 or 52. I'll check and see if we've done that, because we might want to read some of that. And then we'll also maybe do some card readings tomorrow. And if anybody has anything they want to share about, what they feel is shifting inside of them, like Bob, who said he's feeling stuck and his mom's telling him get going. Where maybe are you stuck? Maybe where are you re-examining what you're doing, how you're doing what you're doing? And the question I would say that you need to ask as you're doing this is, what would make me feel good? What would make me happy? What would bring me joy? What would make me feel vital? What would be blissful? What would seem to be in alignment with peace in my life? Where am I not at peace in my life? And what can I do to restore that? And, your handy dandy journal is a good way to get through that, right? To write these things down. So, all right. I think that's it for me today. I'm going to check one more time, see Marissa's issues, tech resolved, so I can at least join live tomorrow. Very cool. Jesse Kane, good morning. Rels, I think that's a different language and I don't know what that means. You're probably likely telling me I'm crazy because the last word I see is schizo. I'm going to copy that and put it into translator. Anyway, take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow morning. Bye for now.